Mike Brown, the 2023 Coach of the Year, now fired by the Sacramento Kings. This comes on the heels of a frustrating gut punch loss for the Sacramento Kings to the Detroit Pistons last night. Mike Brown, according to Shams Charania, now being let go by the Kings. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Joined by Donnie Freeman. Donnie, what do you think? Mike Brown, we were just talking before we came on here. How long ago was it that he got an extension with Sacramento?
6 months. They extended him through the 27 season. So they just did this. So it's kind of crazy that they're willing to eat the duration of that contract.
The 2027 season. So they're going to pay him for the remainder of this season, plus 2 more seasons, maybe 3.
$30 million 3-year extension.
Oh, man. I mean, this tells you where the Kings are at. The Kings are down bad. The Kings are getting desperate here. We know they're going to be active on the trade market. This comes on the heels of a report from the Hoop Collective about teams already, 4 teams specifically, already lining up looking for a DeAaron Fox trade. The Miami Heat, the Lakers, and 2 Texas teams. You have the Spurs and the Rockets. Now Sacramento sitting 13-18. They are 3 games out of the play-in the NBA's Western Conference, and they lost their last 5, and now they're going to eat the salary of Mike Brown for the next few years. But wait, there's more. We just got this tidbit coming in. According to Matt George, the Kings, not only did they fire Mike Brown, but how they fired Mike Brown. They reportedly fired Mike Brown right before the team's flight to LA, shortly after he led practice and spoke to the media. So they let Mike Brown run practice. They play the Lakers tomorrow in LA. They let him run practice today. He spoke to the media. Then they stopped him from going to get on the plane to fire him. Donnie, what the hell is happening?
That's so crazy. Just imagine it. He's running it, all that stuff. All right, we're gonna get on the plane. He gets there. They're like, sorry, sir, you can't get on. Wait a minute. What do you mean? I'm the coach. Not anymore. Sorry. That's insane. That's crazy. That I can't believe that. I've never seen that happen before. But they got the bang for their buck one last time, because that's $30 million that's kind of down the drain. So they were like, nah, you're gonna run it one more time. You know what? Really? That makes me think like maybe they didn't come to the decision to fire him yet. Like maybe something happened in the practice, or maybe after the practice they were, because otherwise did they go into this all knowing? Because that's just so weird.
Oh, if you did that, like, think about this. It makes it feel like the Kings came to this decision very haphazardly, because if you didn't, if you knew coming out of last night's game, let's say your decision makers met, you would have done this ahead of time and let your new coach the team during practice. Like, why? That would be a great opportunity to, hey, here's how we're going to change things. Here's how things are going to get switched up. I know Mike Brown did this. I'm going to do this, this, and this instead. Again, I'm assuming right now, it's not official. I'm assuming it's going to be Jay Triano, but this is what I'm going to change. It would be nice to have a practice session to run through that. This very much makes it feel like the Kings reached this decision last minute and then hurried up to do it. That this is not a great look for the Sacramento Kings, I'll tell you that. To let him coach the team today, that doesn't help Mike Brown. That doesn't help the Kings at all. Doesn't help whoever it is that's going to take over as the new coach. And then to even let him speak to the media, this looks extremely disorganized for the Sacramento Kings. Unless, Donnie, like you said, something combustible happened in practice that necessitated this decision happening the way that it did.
I can't imagine an organization being that, like, you know what? Screw it. We're going to fire him. There had to be something that just popped up randomly. So that actually, I think, recontextualizes this whole discussion if something like that happened there. But regardless, I mean, the main bullet points are still true.
Is what's going on in Sacramento, is it Mike Brown's fault? Is he the guy who should be out here?
So I don't watch enough Kings games to tell you definitively, but what I can do is I can say what I've seen, and that's been a lot of Kings fans just absolutely killing Mike Brown. I didn't think he managed the last game well at all. I don't think he manages his timeouts whenever, we are watching him when he's playing the Lakers or things like that. I don't think he manages his timeouts well. I don't know that he uses the personnel great. Like I think that, but I think you could have some of these same gripes with a lot of coaches around the league. I feel like most fans don't like their coach, so it is what it is. But in terms of that, yeah, I don't watch them enough, but I do think that the fans are out on him completely.
Yeah, and this is what happens. It's very this is not just an NBA thing. This is a sports thing. If your team is not doing well, the coach tends to get a lot of flack for it. Now, last night specifically, and this was apparently the straw that broke the camel's back here. Last night specifically, the Kings were up 3 with just seconds left to play. And DeAaron Fox, their star guard, who is now in all these trade rumors, the teams are starting to think maybe they'll move him if he won't sign an extension with them. We'll talk about that more in just a second. But DeAaron Fox fouls Jaden Ivey up 3 on a 3-point shot. He hits it and 1, hits the free throw, and the Kings lose. I mean, a gut punch way to lose. And this was Mike Brown after the game. If you're up 3, you've got to guard your man at the 3-point line. There should be no closeout opportunity. We told them. They know the only thing that can hurt us is a 3. DeAaron Fox was the player with egg on his face, caught ball watching, and forced to leap into Ivy, committing the foul. Here's the play. This is the play. This is insane. This is insane. Like, here's
low? What is he?
Right, exactly. Look at DeAaron Fox. He's 6-7 feet off of the man in the corner, which is Jaden Ivey. Like what? Yeah, if you're the only reason why you're there for 2 reasons. You're in that space for 2 reasons. You're in that space, number 1, to prevent the backdoor cut from being too tight on the man. Number 2, to prevent the drive. It's Malik Beasley with the ball. You're up 3, and it's Malik Beasley. Who cares if Malik Beasley wants to drive to the basket? Let him. Welcome him. Usher him to the rim if you have to. You're up 3. Let him drive to the basket and take a 2 with 6 seconds on the clock. Instead, he's playing off of Jaden Ivey, and then this happens. Oh, my God. Watch this. Watch right there. Oh. Fox. Oh. Yes, Jaden Ivey jumped into him a little bit, but look, watch Fox's hands. Boom. He reaches his hands out and grabs Jaden Ivey. He fouls him on purpose. And Jaden Ivey gets the and 1. And the Kings go on to lose by 1. And Mike Brown loses his job. A little frustrated here, I think, with DeAaron Fox. Is this the Kings trying to placate Fox, knowing that the next step is probably a DeAaron Fox trade? Is that a factor in this?
Yeah, so for one, I do think that possession was on Fox. I think he was caught ball watching and like overreacted, because he was out of position. He was like, "Oh crap!" and then jumps on him and all this stuff. And he does lunge into him a bit, and you could argue whether or not he should have got it, whatever, but he did. So that being said, in terms of like the Mike Brown piece, I'm sure that that's a part of it. Like maybe there is some like, okay, we're floundering. We have this backdrop of DeAaron Fox, and there's rumors coming out about him going to X destination, Y destination, wanting a trade. Mm-hmm. Rich Paul is talking to the front office now, like, hey, what are we doing? DeAaron is saying publicly that he only wants to win at this point. So there's starting to be pressure that they haven't had, and he's the best player they've had in the last couple of decades. So obviously that is a factor here. And now they're losing 5 games they've had in a row. They've had a slow season here. And so I think this is a drastic move. I don't know a lot of teams that have the cojones to do this, because in aggregate, he's had a good stint with them over the last few years, bringing them back to the playoffs, things like that.
He was the coach of the year a year and a half ago.
So like, I don't know a lot of teams that have the wherewithal to do that, but like, I think that's probably part of it too. I do think that the Fox stuff is a factor with this, and they're like, and maybe there was even some issue that they took with him, because after this, he's in the post game presser. We kind of showed one, but he's taken several shots that are kind of indirect at Fox and the team, and maybe that is part of it as well. They didn't really like that, and maybe there was already some issues in turmoil when you're losing. That obviously roots its way in the locker room. Maybe players were out on him, things like that. So there's things we don't know. There's probably more than a couple reasons as to why he got fired here.
Yeah, and Mike Brown certainly feeling the pressure of the situation. Again, you look at where the Kings are not expected to miss the playoff. They were not expected to be a play-in team. And again, Donnie, we keep going back to this, but when you look at the advanced metrics, and I just was looking at this, they're the 8th best offense in the NBA right now. And it's not like their defense is terrible. They're like, I want to say it was 15th or 16th in the NBA in defensive rating. They should not be where they're at. I still think there's some bad luck going on with Sacramento, but maybe all of this losing is starting to eat away at kind of the morale of the team.
Yeah.
And that's clearly what the front office has to believe. Otherwise, you're now going to pay Mike Brown to sit on a beach, and he probably will, let's face it, he's going to, go be an assistant somewhere or something like that. But you're going to pay Mike Brown for the next, 3 years here?
3 years.
To not coach it. You're going to pay him millions of dollars to not coach your team. This reeks of desperation for Sacramento. And maybe that's the correct stance. I'm not saying it's wrong. Maybe they should be desperate when they've got the team they've got. They just got DeMar DeRozan, and they're 3 games out of the play-in.
Yeah, I think that's definitely pretty interesting. My question is, like, what do they do in terms of, going forward? Do they feel like they've got a guy that can be the interim, or are they looking at one of the free agent coaches out there as well? But, we've talked a lot about the Kings on the channel, and one of the things that we've always talked about, like you said, we look at the advanced metrics, and everything screams that they should be a good team. Yeah, there are some situations where, like, hurters out there, and it's not looking great, or things you can do with that to maybe tweak it, but altogether, they should be better than they are. And we ultimately decided that they were also just losing games on bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were having, like that game was literally, he hits a 4-point play to win the game. Like that's
right.
As bad luck as it could get. Right. So things like that are happening that may or may not be in your control. Again, that one's a little different because I think Fox could have just stayed attached to him, but he didn't.
Yeah.
But Shams put out that they've lost an NBA high 13 clutch time games this season.
Yeah.
So that's kind of insane. Especially to me, I think that's kind of insane too, because you've got Fox, you got DeRozan. These are guys that have either won or have been in the running for the clutch player award too. So something is just not clicking here. And I know that a lot of Kings fans and fans in general have said that, okay, well, the main thing that changed this year was the addition of DeRozan. But again, when you look at the advanced metrics, we also concluded that DeRozan's mostly been good for the team. So it's just a weird situation there, right?
So, and with that being the case, though, with it being these clutch time games, and that's why their advanced metrics still look so good. They're just barely finding ways to lose games down the stretch. And I would imagine associate head coach Jay Triano probably gets the first crack at the head coaching gig, at least in the interim. But perhaps changing the coach does fix that. Perhaps that does solve things here. I mean, they take on our Lakers on Saturday. Typically, when you have a shakeup like this, the team will respond. There will be a short term, it's usually short-lived, but there will be a burst in energy and attention to detail and all those things. And so maybe this is all the Kings need, and they decide, you know what, rather than going the nuclear route and trading DeAaron Fox right now, we need to explore every avenue to try to make it work with this team. And option one is firing Mike Brown and just seeing if a shift of the head coach improves our execution in late games. And then it's about changing up the roster and finding some additional pieces, because it's easier to find, despite the fact that you're going to pay the dude now $30 million to not coach your team. I mean, a 3-year extension through 2027 to not coach your team. But it's easier to do that than it is necessarily to force a trade on the NBA trade market. I do still think they're going to be very, very active there. They're going to try to add firepower to this group. But this is step one to see if this fixes things, because clearly something is not working in Sacramento. Step two will be making a trade where you're adding talent. And if that fails to work, and DeAaron Fox says, I want out and I will not sign an extension, that's where you ultimately land on a DeAaron Fox trade. This is just step one of getting to that point, and the Kings hope to not get to that third point.
Absolutely. And one thing that I will say is not in their favor is per Tankathon. Guess which strength of schedule they've got left here? This is kind of crazy.
Is it the worst?
It's the third worst.
Oh my God. It is.
They've got number 3. So obviously this can change, but yeah, they've got a tough road ahead of them. They haven't played Boston, OKC, Cleveland. They've got all these matches against these great teams that they've got to play, and it's going to be really tough to try to turn this around, especially in the Western Conference, how things are. It's going to be really tough for them to try to make the push, because that pressure from Fox is still there. That's not gone. Yeah. That hasn't changed. So they're going to need to start winning games.
And that's just it, Donnie. This is a desperate decision from the Sacramento Kings, but that's where they're at. they have to do something drastic. They have to do something desperate, because otherwise they're staring down, traded DeAaron Fox, and then what do? Then is it you go back to a rebuild again? Again, you missed the playoffs for 17 years. The Kings don't want to do this. So now Mike Brown out in Sacramento. We'll see where he goes from here, but I don't feel bad for Mike Brown. He's going to get paid. He's going to get paid through 2027. He's going to be getting $10 million a year. We should all be so lucky.
Must be nice.
Must be nice. Must be nice. We'll see if this shakes things up. Everybody, let us know in the comment section. Are the Kings doing the right thing here? And is this putting us on a path to a DeAaron Fox trade? Let us know in the comment section, and go check out our latest video on Yusuf Nurkic and why his days appear to be numbered in Phoenix.